And what's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Danny the Bull, here with Hello K. What's going on, buddy?
All good, all good. Good
We
to
got Daniel Lee in the house also. He's tending to his baby right now. He's going to try to join us. He's doing double duty right now. He's doing some daddy daycare things, and he's trying to jump on the stream to have a conversation with us. So let's get started. Kay, how have you been? What you been up to?
yeah, I've been good. This week was Easter break, so I took some days off work. Basically, got the whole week off. Just been studying a lot, both some stuff on smart contract development and spent a lot of time on like charts, funded trading. It's the real Alex or fake Alex, I don't know.
We got fake
Yeah,
Alex in
so
the
spending
house.
a lot of time on charts. I've been like kind of documenting my trades. Um, both the wins and losses, because I think that's important, because a lot of people, they only look at wins, and obviously that's not realistic. Like, people don't just always win. And just so people can see, even if you lose trades, even if you make, a trade goes completely against you, like, you can still be profitable as long as you manage risk properly. What a lot of people don't realize is risk management is the most important part of trading, because even if a trade goes complete 180, if you set your risk to an amount that you're capable of losing without, completely destroying your account, then that's perfectly fine. Even the best traders, they only win 60% of the time. So I've just been kind of documenting that so everyone can see the wins and losses, and just get a more realistic idea of what trading looks like, to be honest. But yeah, apart from that, not too much else. I've actually a friend of mine, wannabe champ Dan. You probably know him as well. He launched his channel, new channel this week, because he got partnered with Coin Bureau. So that was like one of the things I was waiting for him to announce, because they're doing quite a lot of stuff. And so he's been talking to me as well about like some ideas and things that I can like help with. So kind of just been researching a bit into that as well. But yeah, apart from that, and nothing too crazy. I've been kind of off Twitter as much this week, just because I realized I was spending too much time on Twitter, and it was like not really that much value being added to me. So I was like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to focus on some other stuff now, because it's just there's nothing new, to be honest, to like spend my time on.
Yeah. We're going to talk about some of the, Vivi and Omi stuff. Obviously, that's what we're here for. But first, let's talk about overall market. What are your thoughts on things? Like things have been pumping. Bitcoin broke 30K. ETH broke $2,000. Alts are starting to go up. What are your thoughts on this market?
The macro is horrendous. Like, it's terrible. I think it just got announced that apparently rates are forecasted to be going up again.
But I think after the inflation data came out, the percentage went down that we'd get another rate hike forecasted.
Yeah. I mean, we should be getting another one, but even if you look beyond that, right? People are struggling. Like, it is, it's pretty obvious to see, but there's a problem with like loan defaults happening right now, and even lending with banks. Like, a lot of banks are kind of struggling with liquidity. I don't see any good reason for assets, risk assets, to pump at all. Main reason I think crypto is pumping is because of the risk with the US dollar right now. Is people are just looking, like rich people are looking to move money into something for now. And gold kind of shot up, but gold has retraced now. It's starting to retrace. Bitcoin shot up. I suspect that should also retrace. And apparently, right now, the greed and fear index for Bitcoin is quite high on the greed side right now. It's approaching extreme greed, which you kind of don't want to get trapped into. And yeah, the price, if you like understand price action, is it hasn't had a retracement like since like 22K, like a proper retracement. So this is like the equivalent of like what you consider like a bubble in a sense. Like I do believe Bitcoin eventually should be 100K, but now is not the time for that. Like
Yeah.
now is like just I don't know. It's looking like it's feeling like FOMO now. So that's kind of why I'm I'm holding money, but I'm not like going ham or anything. Like I don't mind trading like the movements, but I'm not gonna throw a ton of money in and invest into it at this point for like long term.
Yeah,
Because
I had Ron on my channel last weekend. You know Ron, right?
yeah, Crypto Ghost, yeah, he's
Yep.
a good guy.
So he was on my channel. We were looking at charts, and he was bringing up a lot of data about the previous two cycles and how there was a double bottom, and how in each of the last two bear markets there was a big rally in between it, and then a subsequent crash down to near the bottom level. So is that what you're kind of expecting also?
Exactly. I mean, the bottom level that has been forecasted by quite a few people is about between 12 to 14K. That's like bottom level. Most likely, it looks like I think Ron mentioned as well, a few others, that they're going to be scaling in some buy orders around about 18K. 18K is where I would like, I'd be like, this is a fair area to buy in as well. But yeah, overall markets, I'm not optimistic right now. I'd like to see more data. That's kind of what I always look for, is more data. But yeah, apparently, what was it? FTX, they got like they found billions of dollars, and I heard that the rumor was they're looking to buy back some of the assets that are meant to be on their books. So I don't know, like I've been seeing some
and then get restarted, right? They're looking to reboot the exchange.
Yeah. So they need to buy the tokens back, the liquidity, to restart the exchange. So the rumor is that's kind of what they're doing, which is why a bunch of tokens have had like, and it's not natural at all. Like it is not natural. You look at the volume, it's like on the 1 minute chart as well. It's just like you get a random market buy order, which is like, like 40x the normal volume. Is just like bam, like that. Like Solana had it recently. Few other tokens. Like it's just weird. And FTX did have a lot of Solana, was meant to have a lot of Solana on their books, so that would make sense. But yeah, it could. I don't know. I don't know why someone would market buy so much Solana in one go. Like I just saw it like today.
It may be because the phone was dropping and they were looking to sell on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even for that reason, like any reasonable person wouldn't buy like so much in one go, because it pumped the price like in like a stupid amount. You would like scale in the buys. Yeah. It was funny, but yeah, like apart from that, I'm just waiting. Like I said before, I'm just waiting. I'll trade the market, but I'm not gonna invest into it.
Fair enough. And in terms of let's shift gears, get into Vivi and all that. Paul Barron released what I thought was a pretty decent episode yesterday with Kyle Wilson, where they talked about Vivi and specifically what's kind of gone wrong. And Paul Barron has been pretty bullish on Vivi. What's up, Dan Lee? You're back.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, little Lee.
Yeah, my daughter's here, so
we'll keep it
Daddy take care.
So we're just getting started talking about the Paul Barron episode yesterday. We was talking about Vivi. You guys see that? What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I watched it, and I think it was quite accurate, everything they said. And I know Kyle, like he's typically always, been called a moon boy. But Kyle, I know he's very like critical and open-minded, and he's done very well. Like if you want to look at someone who understands the NFT market, like outside of Vivi, like proper NFT market, he's done very, very well. Obviously I'm not gonna like dox like his success, but he's profitable, and he understands the tech for many projects actually. He's recently tried to explain to people like how royalties are kind of part of the protocol in IMX for people who are kind of confused about Vivi's attempt of trying to embed royalties, because you know, it's something I tried to explain as well to people, but a lot of people just didn't get it. But and royalties are enforceable on IMX. You know, it's part of the protocol. You can't just change it. So
that can't be turned off on IMX's side?
No, it is part of the protocol. It's literally even in the contract. They say royalties, once they're set, the creator can choose to reduce them if they wish, but IMX, part of their protocol is they can't turn it off, because that way it guarantees that they're not going to rug the creators. It's part of the protocol. So a lot of people don't realize that, because they saw, you know, like Solana, they made the royalties optional, and like OpenSea, but IMX is, you know, then Robbie understands, you know, the value of enforceable royalties. So yeah, like Kyle definitely, you know, he gave some good insight, and it's the same thing that I've been trying to say, right? Is there's a lot of stuff that can be fixed that hasn't been like really fixed or addressed yet, and like I don't want to sound rude, right? But I don't think Vivi's the type of company where you need to hand out participation trophies to them, right? Like, woohoo, we need to celebrate getting a search bar, or yes, we've you know, we've made the login and log out issue, like, you know, it's not happening as often. Like, those are such like okay, if it was a tiny little crappy startup that doesn't even generate profit yet, I would celebrate that stuff, right? Because for them that's significant. But I'm not going to celebrate a search bar for a company that is boasting doing, you know, a targeted $1 billion in revenue, right? I expect way more significant stuff, and that's why, you know, like, yeah, we can celebrate the good things. Like, I encourage that as well, but a lot of the good things to me just like, honestly are very insignificant for the, you know, like the size of Vivi when it comes to like this, you know, how much money and income they generate. If you wanted me to celebrate something, it would be like, you know, a full rollout of MCP, like the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to celebrate points on your profile. I mean, it's good, like, you know, at least there's something, but
it's a step.
Yeah, but and like if I compare it to like competitors, right? It's like Hero just had a system for accumulating points from day one, like, you know, before they were even generating any revenue, it was there. Same with McFarlane, they had a system, they've got an XP system, which I believe is getting updated as well, to have like more features, and that was even before they generated a single dollar of revenue from that stuff. So you can see, like, now there's comparisons. Now, if the system was like really significant, like, you know, you can use the points, you can do, you know, use it for, I don't know, like something, not just show the points in your profile, then yeah, like I would definitely celebrate that. But yeah, we're at a position now where a lot of the stuff that Kyle and Paul Barron highlighted, it's like when you have people like Paul Barron, who has always been super bullish on Vivi. He even stated that they're considering removing OMI token from their index, because they've got an index of metaverse tokens, and OMI's always been in there, and they're looking to delist OMI from there. Like, that's how serious it is, right? For someone like Paul Barron to even, like, you know, point that out, that they're at that stage now. So you should never allow it to get to that stage when, you know, your really influential supporters are calling out. And I saw this, and the red flags were there already. Like Jeremy Padua, he was super, you know, criticizing, you know, the lack of utility for OMI, you know, calling it a sprint, not a marathon, because it is a sprint. It, like, you know, it's first person in the market who captures most of the market share. You know, that's the one that's gonna, you know, eventually win. So yeah, I agree with a lot of the things they said, you know, with regards to the problems, and yeah, like the good things, we can celebrate those still, but there's the good things just aren't, to me, that significant right now. Like, there needs to be more significance.
How about Dan? How about sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
Dan, his baby starts crying there.
Yeah, you know, I watched that whole video. I thought it was a good one. You know, when you watch it, it is on the surface apparently negative. But when you watch it in the totality, Paul Barron, Kyle, they both approached it, my perspective, as someone who wants Vivi to succeed. This is not a paid hit piece that's designed to cripple the company, make them look really, really bad. It's really people who want Vivi to succeed. And, we all talk to Kyle. We know his true spirit there. He's just being really objective. And I feel like as investors, all of us try to do the same thing too. We try to be a little bit objective in how we approach Vivi Omi. That's things we say on our own channels in different ways that they need to fix certain things. And when you look at everything as a company as a whole, what they have accomplished, I think, is incredible. Getting all of these licenses, we've heard this many times, to do something pretty innovative where, traditional companies generally don't want to do anything too innovative, or if they do so, it takes too long. I think that's an accomplishment in and of itself. Every great company has things that when they're first growing, there's detractors that say negative things about them. Apple, used to have a lot of hate for their products. Amazon used to have a lot of FUD in the sense in the early days, when I was younger, you would hear how people were, negging Amazon. So I think it's the same way. One of the downsides to Vivi historically has been their technical aspect. They've been slow to get some of these things fixed. I'm not really an insider. I don't know what's going on necessarily, but I see now that they are fixing things, right? They have Nestor. They have Mitch, who does address a lot of the problems that we saw Kyle and Paul talk about. He addresses that. He talks about it. He has a plan. I think it might take a little bit of time, but overall, I thought it was something that was well needed. I thought it was a good thing to see. I don't think they're against Omi or Vivi or want to take them down at all.
Yeah, I did think that it was constructive. Everything that Paul and Kyle said, it was constructive criticism. I also to piggyback off of what you just said, and also on what Kay said. So I agree, Kay, that we shouldn't celebrate, right? We shouldn't throw flowers at their feet for getting a simple task done like a search bar. At the same time, though, it almost seems like we're stuck in a vortex of negative in the community, where if you're on Twitter a lot, it's almost becoming like an echo chamber of people saying the same things over and over again. Have people have like the accomplishments that Vivi has had over the last 2 years? Is that being lost on people? Because we're all here for a reason, and people became emotionally attached to the whole project and to each other in a sense, right? This whole community has formed. So are people quick to forget the positives because of the current negative sentiment that seems to have swallowed?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I'm speaking of everything from the view that, taking into consideration their past achievements as well, right? Like they've done many things correct, and I've always said that, which is why I haven't written it off as like, oh, this is a rug pull project, right? Because I have said openly some of the things they've done are things I see rug pull projects do, but I know that they're not a rug pull, right? Because they have proven themselves in terms of like the partnerships that they have. They've delivered a product. They've tried to address community concerns. Obviously, addressing it and then having some kind of actionable, measurable outcome, that's a different thing. But at least they've openly shown that, hey, we are trying to listen to you guys and we're trying to, deliver what you guys want. Obviously, you need the resources and time and, human capital to achieve that kind of thing. So that's fair enough. Where I think, where I think people get a bit lost, right, is the over amount of speculation based off of some of their achievements. For example, like I see some of the most ridiculous stuff, and I like read it, and I'm like, you're not even on the moon. You're on like planet X or something, like so somewhere that's in a another solar system. Like I'll read comments like Vivi has AR tech, so that means they're going to be the partner of Niantic to launch some global gamified Vivi. It's like, okay, they've implemented AR. That doesn't mean they're going to do some ridiculous partnership with Apple and AR glass. Like, it's just that level of speculation is like what sets people up for failure. Like, and I think we shouldn't try and conflate the things that they have done with things that they could do that are just absolutely unrealistic. I think we still need to stay in the realms of real, like what's real and what's purely fantasy.
Would you say
yeah.
that when people say those things, from an investor perspective, it's like, ugh, that's kind of cringy. But if you're a fan of Vivi, you like the collectibles, isn't that just fans trying to express their optimism of just features they're looking forward to? I mean, we see that in video games sometimes. Sometimes there people are really over optimistic about certain features. I don't know. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I think optimism is one thing, and then just pure delusion is another. I think there's a fine line, or not even a fine line. There's a very, very thick line between the two. And I've seen optimism, like, for example, when we get Street Fighter, will we be able to control that character? Like, that's very possible, right? It's not ridiculously difficult to do. To have like a little UI menu that has like a little gamepad and you can control the character, like that's fine. But then like people saying, oh, buy the Disney Golden Moments because you'll be able to use your Walt to get a lifetime Disney pass, and they'll have like okay. So there was the announcement that Disney was doing like some AR rides, like AR without the glasses, and people were trying to link it up with like the Disney collectibles on Vivi. Like, it's completely unrelated. And it's just like that level of that level of speculation is like something that ends up gaslighting people into buying that stuff. And it's not something I support. Like,
so it sets unrealistic expectations, in other words, and leads people to get doubly frustrated.
Exactly. Like, you want to set realistic expectations for people, and it's a difficult one for the team as well, because by saying that kind of stuff, you're putting the team in a difficult position as well, because the team probably isn't just going to openly come out and say, yeah, you're completely wrong, we're not going to be doing this stuff with Disney, because like it's just not something that that a company would do. They wouldn't go out and correct people on things that make them look worse, right?
And they also can't comment on every wild speculative.
Exactly, because they've got NDAs and stuff as well, so they just can't comment on your speculation when it comes to Disney and other things. So yeah, like, for example, right, one of the most notorious ones was that guy who worked at KFC, who was like gaslighting as a journalist, probably a Twitter journalist, Indy Kyler, that was his name, right? And there was that right at the start of when I got in, he was basically throwing out speculation that because he did journalism, like Twitter journalism for like sports, like football matches, or you guys call it soccer, and he was followed for that. He was basically posting that Vivi was about to drop a partnership with FIFA, and him doing that was basically pumping Omi token. And like Rhys came out and said it himself that eventually that these are like all unsubstantiated claims, like he's probably just pumping his own bags. And so you gotta like, I don't think the team's gonna say that kind of stuff anymore, because this was earlier on, before the project had as much of a following. Like, I don't support like ridiculous speculation, because you got to set realistic expectation. Plus, from the outside, it also makes the project look less credible, because that's the kind of stuff I see from like rug pull projects, where they're saying all this like dumb, like unrealistic stuff, that they're just trying to get people to go in and buy stuff, and that's it. So yeah, I would say just have like realistic expectations. Or if you want to like fantasize and stuff, like, you know, you should phrase it as such. Like, imagine if, you know, we one day could like do this. You know, don't say, you know, this could mean Vivi is going to do X, Y, and Z, like ridiculous.
Yeah, but I think part of that is that there are so many different voices, right, in the community, and you know, you're dealing with everyone, and some people are grounded in reality, and other people are out there, right, and you have no control over that because we all have our Twitter fingers, and you can't really control what everybody says. One thing that, back to the Paul Barron thing, one thing that he said that I thought was interesting, or I don't know if he said it or Kyle said it, was that there hasn't been a real communication strategy for damage control. Danley, do you want to take that one first? Do you agree with that? Has that been part of the problem in like that that goes back to communication?
Yeah. So, you know, in the early days, they used to have a lot of AMAs. I think all of us remember that. Different ways they would communicate, you know, Clubhouse, Discord, Twitter Spaces. And that kind of died down as the expectations were set and then not met. And then I remember there was a shift, and I was kind of for this actually as well. I wanted them to have a communication strategy that was less focused, less frequent, because really it would turn negative because people would have their questions, it wouldn't get answered. They, you know, maybe it wouldn't be answered to their satisfaction. So they actually kind of did that, whether they listened or not, but they just kind of didn't do as much communications. And now the script has flipped in the sense that now we want more communication because we don't really know what's going on. But when you think about it, they do these monthly updates. They're somewhat irregular, but there are some communications, but it's definitely a lot more scripted. And I think from a public relations perspective, this is actually good. And when you think about just conventional companies, you know, we expect quarterly updates. There's a quarterly phone call, and that's pretty much all we get unless they have these curated news releases. So from an investor perspective, I think that's perfectly fine. As a YouTuber, I don't like it because I don't put out as much videos. I don't get to talk about fun stuff. But just objectively speaking, I think this is good until they can actually release the things that they've talked about for so long, OUP, Viviverse. Then they can maybe start talking a little bit more. But if they have nothing to talk about, there's really nothing that they should be saying.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, right, is communication was more frequent before, right? And nowadays, it's like it feels non-existent, even though the team count has apparently increased a lot. And I'm certain there needs to be like there is someone whose role in the company is, you know, includes communications. Like there has to be someone there, because there used to be you know, like Rhys purely as communications manager.
Wasn't that like Alex and now Ryan?
Yeah, exactly. So that should be their role. Now the problem, and I think this is partly why communications is like very, very infrequent now, is you look at Alex and you look at Ryan, and you know they're both fantastic guys. Like, you know, like I've got nothing against them, but neither of them have like any like real like tech or Web3 kind of knowledge. And a lot of the questions people have is based around that. Not just that, but like, you know, just general like legal backgrounds as well, because there is a lot of questions related to like terms of services and like, you know, money movement and things like that. People, you know, ask a lot about that kind of stuff. So the problem that I saw them having is people would ask a lot of these questions that they're not qualified to answer. So basically, a big chunk of the AMA ends up, or communications or whatever, like community session, ends up being them either saying they don't know, or they'll have to speak to Mitch for like half the questions, or Dan or someone, or, you know, if they do say something, sometimes it ends up being the incorrect thing because, you know, I made a point of it. It sounds like their internal communications isn't very consistent. Like, and I've noticed that, you know, sometimes David will say something and Alex will be like, what is this really happening in the middle of an actual AMA? Like, it's like, do you guys not speak to each other like before saying this kind of stuff? And I've heard it on many occasions now, which, you know, leads to me to believe that, yeah, the internal communications aren't very good either. So yeah, like Alex and Ryan, like they're good guys. They're good for like, you know, giving a general update, but they're not very good for like taking community questions just because, of their background. Mitch is better in that respect. Like, I've never had a problem with like Mitch giving me answers to things when he can. And he very often like reaches out to people. I can see that he's very pragmatic, so that's a good thing. Which is why I've always felt that Mitch was what they needed, but it's still not enough in my opinion.
I think they need a couple more Mitches.
Yeah, they need like a couple more Mitches because this is the problem, right? Is they have so many quick wins, but no one ever sees the opportunity. For example, when SIVB went bust and Robbie from IMX, the first thing he tweeted was, we don't have any exposure. Like if they needed someone to tell people that, because that's what people are asking. Again, Wire, Caro, shout out to him. He actually went and contacted Wire's customer support and got the response from them regarding the international payouts being suspended. Like the first time round, like they've told us that, payouts going to be suspended like 4 days after Wire had publicly posted about it.
Right.
Like you should, if they're your payout partner, you should be in constant communications with them, not telling us 4 days later after they publicly told us. And then because they told us like, a couple of days before they were restricting it, people who did initiate payouts, obviously, you've got to account for like some lag time and things like that. Some people were in the middle of a payout, and then the payout got refunded. But then some people were reporting because of that reason, like, obviously they take like a 10% fee. Some people were like, oh, I think I didn't get the feedback or I didn't get the right amount. But like, there's all these like problems that come as a result of that communication. If your communication was better and you gave people enough time and things like that, like very likely you wouldn't have as many of these like problems that, have resulted as a result of, people trying to cash out like quickly ASAP on like, the night before. So yeah, communications wise, I think they definitely need someone who understands, tech, Web3, some of the legal aspect, even, and just someone who can like comment, like, address certain questions properly. Because I've heard them say some things which I think they should not have said, and I've pointed it out, but now I just stopped pointing out because I don't really care anymore. But like the communication side is like one of the sides that I think they really need to think deeply about, because the damage control, like Paul Barron, Kyle Wilson, like it shouldn't get to a point where these guys need to start publicly pointing out the flaws. Like it should have been it shouldn't even gotten to that point. Like,
I think it's a really good point you brought up about having, because I do like Alex very much. I like Ryan. I think they do a good job at their job. However, they're not tech people, right? So like you said, they can't speak to some of these things. And I do like the way Mitch communicates. Dan, as someone who's not tech savvy yourself, do you notice a difference like in communications coming from Mitch versus the other guys?
Yeah, definitely. Seems like he reminds me of Rhys in the kind of the early days, very approachable, gives great insight into the inner workings of the company. Part of the celebration of minor wins, to me, that is a strategy of giving us something, telling us things are changing, while also realizing that probably there's a lot to fix on the back end. That to me is the explanation of why we haven't seen some of these things, why it's taken so long. Another aspect too is we see that we were supposed to get MCP like Christmas or something like that, and that was delayed. We now know that the OMI token utility program might be intertwined with the MCP, and I think that's a great example of maybe one step backwards, two steps forwards. On one hand, it is a delay, but one of my problems with MCP is that at least from that early beta article, there didn't seem to be any real reason to have that. It was just kind of these points that you might get with uncertain utility, but might mimic the exact functions of OUP. So having them intertwined, and I personally believe we're going to see like those. There was these kind of these points with the OUP where if you actually spent money, you would get these points that weren't really described in too much detail. I think those are probably going to be like MCP points. So that's just my personal speculation, but I like his communication strategy. I think he's giving us small wins to celebrate, and also really putting in the time needed to actually fix things so that once we are ready, we'll see a lot of progress very quickly, very rapid progress.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that it's going to take time, obviously. In the meanwhile, people are going to continue to be frustrated, right? But are there like some low-hanging fruit items that they can implement quite easily that would go a long way towards appeasing people while they're fixing those long-term issues, or while those big projects come out? Okay, you have any ideas about that? You're muted. You're muted,
Hey,
Kay.
Okay, you're muted, man.
Can't hear
Oh,
you
yeah,
or your
sorry,
or
I
your
muted
throat.
myself there just in case there was an echo. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Like there have been so many things I've literally just told them, like these are some of the things that you guys can do. That it would easily give you quick wins in the community. So one of those is when David said that your collectibles will be released to L1 if they ever go bankrupt, because someone was asking about bankruptcy. Sanjay himself agreed, and Sanjay's the one who suggested it. So I'm not going to take credit for it. Sanjay, Mr. MC1, gets credit for this. He's like, they should just slap it in the terms of service. It will take them like 5 minutes to write it down, post it, and then all of a sudden people will stop speculating and worrying about, like, I don't own my stuff. Like, hey, if ever Vivi goes under, you get given all your stuff, or at least the artist stuff. That's what David said. He didn't say anything about the other IP. So that's a super quick win, and the fact that David said it publicly, means that there shouldn't be an issue. Just literally slap it on the terms of service, and people.
Is there a legal reason though why they don't do that?
There shouldn't be, because David said it publicly. He like legally he can't be saying that kind of stuff unless it is okay. That's like a like what we call like a verbal contract, like the fact that the CEO has went and publicly stated it. You can't, there shouldn't be a reason for them to not have it in the terms of service. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, it's a simple one, and at this point, like I really wish that they had done it now. Is just like advertise a little bit more in terms of like your big hires. Like IMX does it all the time. And I keep going back to IMX because like they've done a lot of the things that I wanted Vivi to do, but they did it before, like they did it after I had started talking about it. So I didn't even know that they were going to do a lot of this stuff. So for example, they hired like someone who was a director at Disney. They hired like the ex CMO of Avalanche as well. Like these are big names, like heavy hitters. Yuga Labs, they hired the new CEO who was like he was at was he the CEO, or he was quite high up in Activision Blizzard, and they hired him as the CEO now. Like these are names that people know, and so if Vivi just came in, had like one good significant hire, and just advertised it, publicized it, like it would drive so much positive sentiment. And at this stage, they really should have hired. If they want that scalable growth, like they need one good person in some area, like ideally tech. That's what I would suggest. And then I just feel like the stuff that, like, I know they said that they're gonna post like every quarter objectives and things like that, but they don't really show like any teasers or any clips or anything anymore. Like I know they used to, like, very occasionally, and it got people hyped up. It looked like they were doing stuff in the background, but they never do that anymore. And Illuvium does it all the time. Like they always show like in progress, like models being made, features being tested. Like they'll post videos of that to their Twitter feed, and it hypes people up. It makes people think, oh, you guys are actually doing stuff. Like I have something to look
Does
forward to.
Illuvium have the rabid community that Vivi has that would tear them apart?
I would say Illuvium does actually have like
I'm
a
not
pretty.
familiar with Illuvium.
Yeah. They do have a very critical community, because they have had their fair share of mess ups, but they have delivered on the product as well. they've messed up things, but they've delivered, which is why, the token price, did actually move with the rest of the market. It went up. Because the token price, I found, is also a good indicator of sentiment of what people in Web3 think of the company, right? For example, when everyone was hyped about Vivi, the OMI token was going up. And conversely, whenever there was a screw up on one of the drops, like back in the day when, a drop would no one would get it, it was botted, it crashed, etc. The token price went down. Like the token price was correlated with the sentiment of Vivi, but now it's just not correlated at all. It's just literally a stable coin at this point. So, I think there's definitely a lot they can do when it comes to these quick wins. But I don't know if they have anyone telling them this stuff, apart from me, someone on their team internally, hey, we should do this, we should do that, a proper community sentiment / Web3 advisor type of person. I think that would help them.
Dan, you have any thoughts on that, on what they could do short term, in between those long term fixes?
Yeah, we're supposed to get things like Viviverse coming soon. I think we just need ultimately all these small wins, whether it's a search bar or something else. Ultimately, we need them to deliver. They've talked about that we could see Viviverse beta come. I don't even know where I heard this, but Viviverse beta coming soon.
Mm-hmm. We just be rolled out this week. I thought it was meant to be rolled out this week. They said.
Did they say this week or did they say May?
They said
next
Q1,
week, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, yeah, because the beta invites, I'm sure they said mid-April. So I assume this week or next week is when they'll send out beta invites.
Yeah. As long as we get something here soon, even a beta invite where 5 people get a beta invite to the Viviverse and those 5 people screenshot that and post it on Twitter. Things like that would be enough because it's evidence that there's progress. As long as we have evidence or that things are moving forward, we could expect things roughly during their timetable. That's all we really need to see. Even a few tweets here and there, to me, would be enough. And if they deliver on the beta access there, that would be enough for me for now. Yeah.
The Viviverse getting out beta.
Correct.
Yeah. What do you guys think it'll do for the OMI token? Anything? Or do you think that, sentiment is so far down at the moment that it'll take even more than that?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to do much for OMI at this point because so this is my other issue, right? And I made this point 5 months ago when we had that stream, because remember 5 months ago I said I'm going to give them half a year and see what they have done in half a year, right? And 6 months ago, or 5 months ago actually, it was November, I remember. It feels like we're still very in a similar position to what we were at in November. We're still kind of waiting for. I mean, there's MCP now in beta. Some people have it still, some people don't. And last year, November, we were kind of being told MCP was about to roll out. So for half a year, for 2 quarters, nearly 2 quarters now, that's literally the only thing I've really seen. Some people have MCP, some people don't. And it's the very first early version where you just have the points. It's not very good progress in my opinion. But yeah, besides that point, the issue that I have from the last AMA is it looks like they've just changed the OMI token again. They now have this new loyalty program and the OUP is combined with it, aspects of it, but they haven't stated how the token is going to work now, because they said that there's no more just OUP on its own. It's now part of this loyalty program and you get MCP points from doing things. And there's been no article to coincide with it, because it feels like they still haven't finalized exactly what that program's going to look like. And so then you have to ask yourself this question, which is the same point I made back last time was, after 5 years, you still don't really know what you're doing with your token. That's half a decade and your token has no use yet. But even worse, you haven't even finalized that use case yet, because you're still changing how to use it. And at that point, it's just any third party who looks at this kind of thing, they would be like, you guys don't know what you're doing. Honestly and truly, you guys just don't know what you're doing, because after 5 years, half a decade, I would have. If you told me today, by the way, there's going to be a project with licensed IPs, it's going to have an app, it's going to have a web app, we're launching for a token. If you got told that today, you would expect 5 years from now that token will have flourished. It's being used on the platform. It's being used elsewhere. It's on multiple exchanges, all of that stuff. But if I told you today, by the way, that token that I'm selling you today in 5 years, it's going to have no use case, and we won't have even decided on tokenomic model still. Like, you would not buy that token. Like, you'd just be like, what? Like, that's clearly just a way of raising capital.
But then does that not remind you of Cardano and ADA? Is this not on a very similar trajectory, even though they're in two totally different feel? Like, Cardano is a blockchain. Vivi is something totally different. But they both have strong communities that they rely on. They both have no utility for a long period of time and pushed deadlines that continuously get pushed back further and further. They both have divisive leadership, right? Charles Hoskinson, there are people who put him on a pedestal and worship him. And there are people who hate him and think that he's a scammer. And now, similarly, people put the Vivi team on a pedestal, which I think was probably, in hindsight, right, they got too much credit, right? No one deserves to be put on a pedestal, and we all set ourselves up in a way to be let down because no one can live up to the expectations that were set, right?
Yeah.
And now you have people also, because of the high expectations and the pedestal they were placed on, people are sorely disappointed. So I see a lot of parallels there. It doesn't necessarily negate the fact that Cardano could have a valuable future, right? The tech is still strong, and they don't have a lot of people building on it yet, but the path is still there.
Yeah, I can actually
for Omi and Vivi.
Yeah, I can explain why they're very different, right? It's because I got into Cardano ICO phase, or very around that period. Like I got it at when it was half a was it triple 0.05 00? I think it was 0.005. So half a penny, right? And then I sold it for 5 cents because I kind of gave up on it. But I've been following it, and I know someone who did get into Cardano, even pre-ICO. He bought in privately. He bought I think $4,000 worth privately, which basically yielded him over $1 million. And so the difference with Cardano was, because it's not a utility token specifically, it's a whole blockchain solution. They were doing these roadshows, and you could actively see that they were doing a lot of work and research into the right kind of solution and improving because the tech was also changing at the time. So they had to keep changing the tech, but they made it very transparent. They were showing the progress. It's one of those things where,
I agree with that, because I've listened to, I haven't been invested in ADA, and I know that they don't hit their deadlines, or they haven't hit their deadlines, but they always talk you through the tech and show you tangibly what's happened. And I think that's something that the Vivi team, it goes back to that communication thing.
Yeah, so it's if I was to give it an analogy, it's if you're a trader and you're about to make a trade, right? The process of clicking buy or sell, that only takes a couple of seconds, but it's everything before. If you can see the process, the charting, the research, the back testing, that's kind of what Cardano was showing. And that's why they're different. Whereas with the Omi token, we don't see any of that. And the fact that even now it's and it's a utility token, and utility tokens, they're far simpler to, integrate than a proper blockchain solution. So they're not showing that process, and it looks like it's just because they weren't really, heavily focused on that process. It just felt like it became a side thing that they're kind of doing as they go on. It didn't feel like there was a sense of urgency to work on it, and that kind of the fact that they're only recently updating this OUP roadmap, and they're still changing it around. It's like after 5 years onwards from selling the token, you've got like people have been holding for like that long, just really frustrated. At that point, it's like, yeah, you have to ask, what is going to be the the final product? What is OMI going to be? And I think that's like a key difference between Cardano is people had like an idea of what it was already, and they just kept showing the progression and building towards the idea. And because of that reason, they didn't have to execute on the idea. They just had to keep showing the building and progression. With OMI, we're not like seeing much of that. It's just ideas that are just thrown out there without actual work being shown that's been put into it.
So Dan, as one of the big voices in the OMI community and a holder of a lot of tokens, has your resolve been shaken by the lack of development and by the, like Kay said, them not having a concrete plan for OMI and it constantly changing?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's hard to. We're all human beings. In general, I'm still bullish on OMI. That can be shown by the fact I haven't sold any really since 2021. So I definitely am still bullish on the project as a whole. And, I know there's a lot of change in the utility program and modifications, but, ultimately the core utility of the OMI token at the end of the day is being able to use it to buy and sell. Once we get that, that's pretty much the core utility. Everything else is a bonus. And from my conversations with people at DesignerCon last year, it seems like the program is very flexible. If something doesn't work, they're going to change it, maybe get rid of it. If they find something that sticks and is better, it sounds like they're going to just continually add utility to it indefinitely. That, I think, can be very bullish. If there's something, maybe if people don't like the bronze tickets, maybe that's not something that's very attractive, or people just don't like using it, they'll find something else to use the OMI tokens for. That flexibility can be a negative because it's hard to assess what the future demand of the OMI token will be. But it's also bullish in the sense that, we could see additional utility added on. It's not just a one and done thing. But ultimately, as long as we get the core utility, OMI to NFT, being able to use it to buy and sell, that's kind of the utility we saw initially. It's not the buybacks necessarily, but it's at least the core function of any token. Utility token is essentially buying and selling. As long as we have that, I think we'll be fine.
I guess you could look at it in a cynical way as well, right? Is the flexibility side of the OMI program. And before I would dismiss this kind of thing, but now it's like, I feel like this is exactly what they're going to do, right? Is I've been tracking data for a long time, and Sensor Tower is one of the data sources I track. And it's good because it actually shows you from the mobile app side how much money has been put into the app. And that number has been going down. I mean, you don't need to use data to realize they've been making less money for, like from last year, right? Like it's kind of obvious at this point, but you can see that amount, right? And so my concern was, and people always ask, why do you care if they're not making as much money? Why do you care if their stuff isn't selling out anymore? Or why do you care that there aren't as many trading on the market anymore? Because you can also see the secondary market activity is very, very low compared to before.
Dried up, right? Yeah, exactly.
It's dried up. So they're making way less money on the secondary fees as well on top. And then on top of that, there are also a lot more people cashing out as well compared to last year when we didn't have cash out. They were able to offset the amount of people cashing out with like how much they were generating from secondary market volume, because they were doing a lot in secondary market volume. You could see it. You can see on IMX like the transactions. It was just like bam, 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 bam. Like every second, see dozens of transactions. Like you could even keep up on the same page. Now, if you open it, like you could just sit there and the transactions aren't really moving very quickly. Like you can see the volume, right? So the problem, and this is the thing that I have with the issue of like they can change the OMI program, is they made these like statements that people felt more bullish about OMI on, like we're going to have a land sale that can be done in OMI, or when we release our own IP, because we don't need to pay ourselves, we can just do it all in OMI and burn all the OMI. They made these statements publicly. There are records of them making these. Now, because of that reason, right? Hypothetically, let's say, they see this money on the table, like Illuvium, for example, they did over $70 million of in land sales. If it comes to a point of Vivi, looking at it being like, oh, are we really gonna do $70 million, hypothetically, like $70 million of land sales and then just burn all that OMI? Why don't we instead dilute it, do only 10% of the land sales in OMI and the other 90% in gems and fiat and stuff, so that we make a ton of money off that? Because as a business, if your revenue is starting to dry up, right, or it's not as high as you projected it would be, you're going to have to make those decisions. And so all of a sudden, all of these models and things that people made off of, like, how much OMI could be burned and stuff like that, like then gets diluted and it's not as good anymore. Same with the IP. One good example, right, was when they did the Vivi logo, because that's their own IP. And they're taking a 2.5% fee from that every time someone buys one, right? And those things go for a lot. So why is that a dog on your lap?
It's a head.
Yeah. So why is it that there's, even of their own IP, when they said before they even dropped the logo that they were going to, if it's their own IP, they can just burn the fees and burn the amount that they take in. They're still taking a 2.5% fee, which is going into their own company revenue. Why don't they just take that money, because it's their own IP, like they said, they don't need to pay themselves, and instead start filling up that OMI to gem pool with it, so that they can use that for people to burn OMI, like, but they haven't done that. So again, when they do drop more of their own IP, like, I would question, are they still going to plan to do it 100% OMI, or are they going to start to dilute it and be like, oh, let's only do 50% OMI, 50% gems, so we still make a bit of money off that? And then all of a sudden, all of those predictions and models you made, it's like, it's not as bullish anymore. It's like, as blockchain Rick put it, he kept describing OMI as like an alternative to ETH, basically. It's like, you use it to buy collectibles, which you can also use with ETH, except you don't pay an extra 3% when you put it into the app. You just pay. Oh, no, sorry, yeah, you do pay the 3% for ETH, yeah. So yeah, I guess that's one benefit. I don't think you pay an extra 3% for putting in OMI. But then why not just use gems if that's the case? You don't want to pay an extra fee. Like, it's easier. You don't have to go through the fees with the exchange, the gas fees and all of that stuff. Bridging from L2 to L1. Like, there's money involved in bridging, which you wouldn't pay if you just use your debit card to buy stuff, right? Like, why would people go through all of that effort, jump through all these hoops to then have less money to buy stuff with? Just, unless those OMI burn points are really good for something, like, I don't see why people would choose to do that. So it's like all of these reasons. It's like, and I still don't actually know what the program's going to look like, because they've changed it. So I don't even have tangible data to go off of. It just feels like them stating that they can make the program flexible and change it, like, it can be a bad thing as well for if you're modeling the use case of OMI in the future. And that's why, that's why I'm not as bullish now, because of all of these reasons. But if they can show that they are going to stick to what they said, and they're going to do like 100% of XYZ sale, all of that is going to be in OMI and it's all going to be burned, then yeah, that would definitely change my perspective. But just off of what I can see happening, I feel like they are going to possibly dilute the value of OMI for, like, in the ways that I suggested.
Yeah, we need to see what that merger looks like between OUP and MCP. I did like when they dropped the OUP article. I do like it. I do like that there are multiple mechanisms to burn OMI. Like you said, it remains to be seen. I was never of the opinion that it would pump OMI next cycle or anytime soon, just because it's impossible to quantify it until you see it happen, right? Until we see what those variables look like, it's impossible to really understand what it's going to look like. We got people in the chat asking about the Rhys thing. Do we talk about Rhys selling OMI? It's a speculative thing. Like, a lot of people have been speculating on this, right? Crypto Bro tweeted out what he tweeted out. People have been talking about it, making allegations of Rhys selling on pumps or coordinated with catalysts. Any thoughts on that, guys? And I'll tell you guys what I think.
Yeah. So I'm gonna wait and see until there's like proper data that's come out with like the wallets and everything, because I think they haven't shared the exact wallets yet, which apparently they're gonna be doing, because that's been one of the things that people have been, you know, like pointing out, is they're making these statements without sharing the exact wallets and how they found it and all of that stuff. So I'll wait for that data to go up publicly. But what I will say, right, is there are some misconceptions. Firstly, people believe if you're an employee, so not speak about Rhys, but you know, just in general, if you're an employee in a company, right, is you're still free to buy and sell with insider information like as you wish, which is not the case, right? That's the exact argument that was made by investment banks, because investment banks, what they have is they have two sides to the company. You've got something called a buy side and a sell side. The buy side, you know, buys equities, sell side sells equities. And so what people would do is the buy side would be communicating with the sell side, you know, insider information. So, you know, they would know which equities to buy before, you know, mergers and acquisitions and things like that. So what they had was they implemented something like called the Chinese Wall, which is basically a physical division between the two sides of the investment bank. Like they have to situate them on different floors. They can't communicate about client related stuff at all. And then they have like all of their systems had to be updated. So everything is audited. So you have to have like what's known as MiFID and MiFID II compliant systems. So any like even internal messages, they all get like locked in like this vault, which is encrypted, and there's an audit trail. So if you told someone, hey, by the way, you should look at Amazon and this company that, you know, like all of that stuff is like, it can be backtracked, messages, times, everything. Like there's patterns that they look for to make sure that people are compliant so that there's no insider trading, because they're not allowed to have advantages over retail. And recently Hero, I question if someone on the Hero team was doing this, which is why they shared it publicly.
Or maybe they saw what was going on. I'm sure they're very much in tune with the Vivi community.
Exactly.
And I'm sure they're learning from what's happening here.
Exactly. But Hero was spot on. Like they said, you know, that people on the team that, you know, there are certain things, that rules that they have to follow so they don't have an advantage. And people will try and fight back and say, oh, but crypto is deregulated, so they're allowed to do that stuff. But it was the same thing with equity, with the derivatives market before they had MiFID. Is even though before the regulations came in, like people were still getting sued and, you know, having to do prison time and all of that stuff over this stuff. And very recently, Coinbase, there were these two brothers who knew which tokens were going to get listed on exchanges. So they just bought the tokens before they got listed officially. And they were doing that like, you know, all the time. And then they got sent to prison. And even though, you know, it's like legally there's no like, you know, proper hard regulation for it, like you still can't do that stuff, right? And so in general, as an employee of a company, you can't be acting on public information. But where I question the reselling stuff, right, is again, I have to wait until see all the wallets and stuff come out publicly. But Rhys was always telling us in Telegram he was always buying Omi, and even in Discord, like there was that time when he told us, you know, he sold his car to buy more Omi. So it doesn't line up for Rhys to be saying he's buying Omi but then selling Omi, right? So that's why.
Well, it also depends on the dates, right? The dates that he said that and the dates that he sold, because you can be buying something and then months later you can be selling something, right?
But to be fair, like he was kind of saying that stuff like even last year, like just in Telegram, he was like, you know, always telling people, oh, you know, he's buying more Omi and stuff like, because people would ask him, oh, Rhys, can you like, you know, give us a leak or give us a teaser? And he's like, oh, I can't say anything, but I am buying more Omi, things like that, just to like kind of hype us up. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he did actually sell, you know, but I would say if there's a pattern, right? If it's proven that these wallets belong to him and there's a pattern that's provable and it's consistent, then 100% that is definitely wrong. And that's the kind of stuff that these regulators look at, is they look for these provable patterns. And there's also people who say, oh, but, you know, if you bought the token, you know, you can sell it. And again, like it needs to be as an employee of the company, like it's a provable pattern that matters. Like if you're selling right before, like, you know, if you're moving your tokens, like that's what they were trying to say, is Rhys was moving his tokens a couple of days before any kind of major news and catalyst, then yeah, that would be suspicious. But I'm gonna wait and see the wallets and things like that, because these guys are saying that they have the wallets and things, they're going to publicize them. I'm not sure why they're waiting. Maybe they want to put the information together properly. I don't know. But for me, it's not enough right now. I would want proper tangible data with the wallets and things to like cross-reference myself. Only then could I form like a true opinion. Because right now it's still kind of speculation to me. Obviously not good speculation, but I want to see proper data.
Yeah. Dan, what about you?
Yeah. So, definitely, I've seen some of these rumors, heard some of these things. So that was always kind of in the background. I'm sure many of you guys heard that as well. One second. Let me grab my. Sorry. What I'll say is that at first I was definitely surprised, and my knee-jerk reaction was in kind of a little bit of shock, especially when you saw the timing of some of those alleged transfers. And that's what they are. They're transfers. We don't even know if they are truly sales there. But what I will say is this: I don't think we really have any true evidence that there's maybe insider trading, even though it looks really, really bad. I definitely want to see more of the information. But let me leave you with this. When you're a Facebook employee or you work for a big tech company in the US, a lot of times you'll get stock options as part of your compensation. There's a lockup period, a couple years. What happens after that lockup period? Well, you can sell your stock. And if you work for Facebook, Google, is there any sort of limitations of buying your own company's stock? And if so, can you sell said stock? Typically not, unless you're an executive level employee. Now, Rhys allegedly, I don't think he got any of his tokens from the company. He bought them himself, right? So he can kind of do whatever he wants with that. The only thing is the timing, and really, I think he is the face of the OUP program. That's the only thing that's really, really iffy. Can you hear him say bullish updates of the OMI token program and feel good about it at the end? That's kind of subject to debate. I have not really had strong opinions of how I feel about that. Right now, I'm going through the stages of grief, shock, awe, things like that. So I think sooner or later, and he doesn't have to do this, but it would be nice to hear something about this issue, because I think people will not rest until they hear a reason. So kind of balls is in his court, so to speak. I know other YouTubers have talked about it, made some great points. I think the jury is still out.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page, kind of as both of you. I've gone back and forth in my thoughts on it. At the end of the day, we'll see. We'll see when the wallets come out. I also think it's important for Rhys to speak on it, just because I think transparency is key in this space, and just the optics of selling timed with catalyst that people have, believe it, whether or not it's true or not, right? Just the optics of it isn't a good thing. So I think that even if, it's legal, I don't know what's legal, not legal. But there need to be internal systems, I think, also, right? Just to prevent bad optics, because he is the face of the OMI token, so to speak, right? At the same time, he has a lot of tokens and he deserves to get paid and make his money, right? So it's a tough situation to be in.
I mean, yeah, he did state he was getting paid for his role. He wasn't working for free. The tokens, because he said he didn't get paid in tokens. He got, a typical salary. He was getting paid like for articles he was writing at the early on, and then managing like the socials and things. So the token was just like he said he bought his own tokens. But with employees, it's the reason why employee wallet addresses are always public, especially with lockups, so people can see, like, hey, the CEO has this many tokens, they're not selling, or they are selling, and why are they selling? Like, it's just about that transparency with these tokens. And so it would then beg the question, right? Let's say hypothetically, if David Yu, with all of his insider knowledge, he has a wallet of OMI that has OMI like 30 billion locked up. That's what it has in it. I believe 30
That's what
billion
he
tokens.
has, yeah.
And no tokens in their move. But now let's say hypothetically, right? Because we know David's a multimillionaire. Let's say hypothetically he goes and buys 1 billion OMI on the market, like early on, and he now has that wallet, and he knows all the news that he says can either pump or dump the token. He has bought those tokens himself. Technically, is it okay not to transact on his public known wallet, which has locked tokens in it, but is he now free to buy and sell as he wishes on a second wallet, which we don't know of, knowing that he has all the information and can manipulate the market? And is that now okay? Because the end result is still the same. Like, you're still using insider information to have an advantage over retail, but you're just doing it off of tokens you bought yourself rather than tokens you gave yourself.
Right. But David is the top executive, though, right? That speaks back to Dan's point, and then what exactly, are the guidelines for employees?
Yeah.
Right.
One other thing actually is with banks, because I've worked in financial institutions, is any stock that I bought, and again, this goes to regulation, right? Because the regulations aren't like as clear yet, or there hasn't been like crypto hasn't been included as one of the assets. But with stocks, because I work for an asset management firm and for Bloomberg as well, is if I was going to buy a stock, I needed to tell them, and it had to be in a form, like a proper form. Right. I need to log that form like at least 48 hours before I was going to buy the stock. And if I was to sell the stock, I had to submit a form and then sell it like after a certain amount of time. And also, I wasn't allowed to immediately sell the stock. I wasn't allowed to buy it and then sell it. I had to wait, I think, at least, maybe 4 weeks. And these rules are in place that you have to follow them. Obviously, that doesn't exist as concretely for crypto, but there is like still, it is still, if you're doing it blatantly, like, it's still an issue that, that a court would look into.
Yeah, also with banks, you have like the reason there's like that Chinese wall is that you know of course, but you have potentially a fiduciary duty to your clients. Your clients may have a multitude of issues, so to obviously you have that separation. That doesn't always work, obviously, right? There's cases where there's still fraud that eventually happens, but is Vivi held to that same sort of fiduciary duty to the variety of customers and token holders? I don't know. There's a lot of issues here, right? There's a legal issue, there's an ethical issue here, and there's a lot of different perspectives you can look at this. But ultimately, what people are worried about, and I think I was talking to Foster about this. I think he made an excellent point in my conversation with him. Is if OMI was like 2 cents, 1 cent, would we even care as much about this? And I did think about that a little bit, and I kind of have come to the conclusion, probably not. Probably we wouldn't care at all if it was like 2 cents right now. Ultimately, as bad as this issue may be, I think the fundamentals of the company are still solid. It's changed. There's a lot more risk than a couple of years ago when I first started investing in the token. But ultimately, this issue has very little to do with the fundamentals of the company as a whole. And generally, I'm still very bullish about this. The OMI token and such there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think people would care as much at all, because the token price appreciation would be a reflection of the good versus the bad things, right? And this is the thing, like, I say, if a project, like, I expect projects to make mistakes, but it's about the proportion of the mistakes versus the achievements. And obviously, if the token is down horribly, then the mistakes are outweighing the achievements. And I don't even have to say that. Like, people can see that for themselves, right? Because the token hasn't really achieved anything at this point. Like, it literally does not do anything. And so if you then have, on top of the lack of achievement, someone on the company, you know, if it is true, someone on the company then also selling the token on top, then yeah, people are going to care about that, because it's
Right.
like, oh,
Does that make it, does that validate them, or is that just a matter of timing, right? He's selling when there's a lot of frustration, and that just further frustrates people who are down considerably, right? There are a lot of people who are down considerably, people who bought in at the highs and have held throughout. And some people are down tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so they see, someone else taking profit on the team, and it pisses them off, right? But if we were all in profit, perhaps they wouldn't care. And that's a very valid point.
Yeah, I mean, because if we were in profit, then the token price would be considerably higher. And you have to ask yourself, why would the token price be considerably higher? It's because they've done a lot of it. They've made a lot of achievements. If I use another example, I want to stop using IMX because I used to using IMX as an example. But okay, like IMX from December, it was like in the point threes, and then it pumped all the way to like $1.5 recently whilst the rest of the market was down. And that was because they've made some good achievements. Like, they've done some very, very good stuff with the IMX Passport, the Unity plugin, the new hires with the X AVAX CMO. They've earned that token value. And even with tokens still being unlocked, people are still buying because they can see achievements. If for OMI there haven't really been any achievements, then yeah, like the token price will be down. But if the token price hypothetically were up, then yeah, people wouldn't care as much, because most likely there have been loads of achievements to have pumped that token price. So yeah, it's always a balancing game. It's like the sum of your screw ups versus the sum of your achievements. Like, you got to see, do all your achievements outweigh the small little screw ups?
Now, Kay, you offloaded a bunch of your OMI, right?
Yeah.
Now, Dan, are we still inviting him to the 5 cent party, or he's out, man?
We're
gonna pay for his trip.
I was going to ask him this, and because people use this as a way to kind of attack fudders, as they say, well, you don't have any collectibles, you don't have any tokens. Why are you still here? And I mean this with the utmost respect, because I like Kay. We've known each other since like 2021, met him in London. So I mean this with the utmost respect, but why are you still following the project?
Very good question. Very good question. Yeah. So I made 2 points. The first point is part of the reason why I continue to talk about it, and it leads on to my second point, is I said I'm only going to stop talking publicly about a project when I believe it has no future left, like it's dead, like, because then at that point it doesn't even deserve my time. So by me saying that is a bullish thing. Like, I think there's still very many ways they can make a comeback. Like, it's not dead. They can make a comeback, even with all of the things that did go wrong. They can still make a good comeback, because I've seen it happen before. It just requires a shift in leadership. Typically, I've seen failing companies get bought out by someone else. They hire an entirely new leadership team. They bring in support some good investors, and then all of a sudden it takes off. An example is Quid, right? Quid, like when I joined Vivi, Quid was a meme. Like, no, like people were like, "What is this bitter sticker company that's antagonizing Vivi collectors? Like, their product is crap." Like, and they've made a pretty good turnaround. Like, they got investment from Animoca. They then partnered with Sandbox. They then converted their whole platform onto NFTs. Like, and the app is actually pretty good as well. I used it, and I was like, it's a pretty good, well built app. So that's an example where they were able to kind of turn it around. Now, same thing, Vivi can turn it around as well. The second reason, probably the less public reason, is I have a lot of like people I consider like friends on the this community, and they just very openly speak to me privately. I think that's a bit of an oxymoron, openly, privately. They're open about their feelings, but they privately message me about it, right? And they don't want to talk about it publicly because they told me that that they don't like getting attacked, because I have noticed anyone who expresses views publicly, they start getting attacked. Kyle Wilson, everyone knew him as the Moon Boy, and then all of a sudden after that one video, like Kyle is now, the ultimate fodder. Like he's taken that title off me now. So yeah, these people, and there's a lot of people like that. Like people who you would think, they're happy with Vivi, like they're really not. But then they'll tell me privately, and a few of them, they've asked me, hey, can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? Because you have like I appreciate that they feel like I'm flattered that they think I've got like a voice that people like listening to. But they say like you have good reach with the team. Like, can you talk about this? Because maybe they'll consider it, and then they'll give me like these points. One of them, he was one of the crowd sale investors of Omi. Like he helped fund building the app, and he's very upset. And he was asking me for ages, like, can you keep pushing this point because the team will listen to you? Can you keep pushing this point? More people need to talk about this. Like, I'm not happy. These other guys that I know, they're not happy. They've abandoned the token XYZ. Like these people would come and speak to me, and so I'd be like, oh, you know what? It's not really a prop. Like, I don't care. So I'll put it out, because if it's really that important to you, and it's important to these other people who I consider friends, like it's like a favor to them. And obviously I do want to see them do well, which is why I'll also provide any feedback and point and highlight any problems that I see. Because now looking back from a year ago, right? And again, I can say I told you so now, because a year ago I was fudding when I said, hey, they need to hire some good technical leadership. And the tweets are there. Like you can go back and look at them. I was saying things like, they need to hire someone to sort out their testing pipelines so that they don't screw up the contracts again. And lo and behold, they screwed up something on the contract side again. They ended up minting sub 40 Dumbos for people publicly, which caused all sorts of outrage. That should not have ever happened in the first place, because I did say, the red flag for me was when I joined the project, and I saw that they had accidentally burned 100 billion of their own tokens because they screwed up their contract. Like, that for me, I was like, okay, like fine, that's done. But what I would like to see is, hiring some good technical leadership, hiring, some good tech leads to sort out your testing pipelines, which to this day, even right now, like at this very moment, I still have not seen evidence of that. So, and I suspect this is going to be a future I told you so moment as well. But I suspect there is going to be another cock up with one of their contracts somehow. And we're going to come back to this conversation again. But if they turn it around and they show, they've really hired some good high level, technical leadership to sort out their testing pipelines, their contracts and everything. And I can see that, that uptick in development with like very low bugginess, then I'll be like, okay, like, they've turned it around now. But until then, like, I'm still in the same kind of position where I'm like, yeah, they've got these issues. Other people can see they have these issues, but they don't want to talk about it publicly. So I don't mind voicing it on their behalf. But to be honest, like I think people probably noticed, like more recently, like probably this past week, I haven't really been talking that much about the project and stuff as I was, like the few weeks before, just because I'm like, I'm at a point where I just don't care. Like, if they make it work, they make it work. If not,
it's also gets redundant, right? We're saying the same thing over and over again. It's redundant. You've said it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've said what I need to say, because what I've noticed is, regardless of what I say or what I don't say, I don't think that they, like, I don't think they actually take what I say seriously. Because if they did, after like a year of like saying some of the stuff and nothing's been actioned that I can see, from like my suggestions, then I'm just like wasting time. So yeah, like to be honest, like I suspect, and probably by next month, like I'm not really going to be even giving feedback anymore. I'm just going to be like, oh, this is cool. When's the next Tokidoki drop? That's all I want. Like that's going to be like the limits of me talking about this project now. Because yeah, like even a lot of the people who have been like messaging me, like I could tell a lot of them have actually now reached the point of giving up. So if they've given up and they're not going to bother asking me to like keep pushing points, then I've got I've got a bit at that point. I've got no reason to keep asking a lot of the things I'm asking because I it's literally just a favor to these guys who many of them are giving up themselves.
Dan, I think you said you got to get going.
Yeah, I do. I have some errands to run here, but I appreciate you all for having me. I think it was a good conversation. I think we talked about a lot of good issues here, but yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Nice having you
Your
on
kid
that.
is so well behaved, man. She sat there the whole time.
Yeah.
She loved this conversation.
Yeah, she loved the FUD, especially. She got really upset
She's a
when we were
fudder?
talking about the FUD. She didn't like the FUD. She doesn't like to hear that.
Oh,
nasty
earmuffs.
FUD. Yeah. All right. Take care.
See you, Dan.
See ya.
Yeah. You want to go another 15 minutes?
Yeah, I can do like another like 10 minutes or so.
Okay. Vivi Vault was on his stream this morning. He had a question. I wrote it down somewhere. It was about the printing of the getting that sub 40 Dumbo out, how it got minted and out. He was wondering how that happened again. If it's just like a problem with the code for that specific collectible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk about it too much. I'm just going to be blunt. It was shitty code. That's it. And
For
it
that
goes
one
back to
collectible.
yeah. Like I said, this was the. I mean, I'm not going to reiterate the point too much because it's
Right.
going to get boring. But I made this point. Like they needed someone. They should have hired someone long time ago to really sort out all of their testing pipelines, because something like this would have been picked up in testing. It should have been picked up in testing, but it didn't. It just feels like there's problems that pop up for the user that should never have been shown to the user in the first place, like ever. Even when they're beta testing stuff, there's some stuff that I'm like, something like, I understand you expect bugs in beta testing, but there are bugs, and then there are just like, what the hell is this? Why is this even here? Like, for example, right, is when we had crypto pay in beta, I click the drop down, and the first option that I see is deposit USD, like bank payments on a crypto payment option. And I click that, and it literally, the whole system like blows up. And I'm just like, why is this even here as an option? Like, this is not even a bug. This is just a failure right there. Like, why would you even something like that just baffles me. It's like, it doesn't make sense. It's like going in for, I don't know, like a routine dental checkup, and you leave getting brain surgery. Like, it just it's not something that it just doesn't make sense, right? So stuff like that is, I'm like, it needs to be caught very, very early on. Which goes back to the point I said, hey, you're going to have weird contract problems if you don't get people to sort out your testing pipelines, and then it happens, and then it's going to happen again probably. So yeah, like if they can prove that they've now got some good technical talent who understands contract testing, all of the different practices when it comes to testing and building testing pipelines, and they can prove that, then yeah, I'll be way more bullish. But until then, it was literally just a failure on testing. Like, they didn't test it properly. They didn't realize that, hey, we shouldn't be minting sub 40s for public people. But it happened, and then they had this whole problem of restricting people, and then taking the collectible back off them, and then creating this whole you don't really own your stuff narrative. Right. And yeah, they could have avoided the whole thing, but that goes to show one small issue with testing can lead to these huge problems.
Yeah. Stan asks, why am I still bullish? I'm still bullish, even though I am disappointed in, as is everyone, with the trajectory, because I think the setup is still there, right? My basic thesis that this is a collectibles NFT app with the biggest IP in the world, that still holds true. That it has a strong community, that still holds true. And just the fact that people who are upset, they're frustrated, but they're still here, speaks volumes to me. And I think that they will be here. And even the people who complain the most, I think they care the most sometimes. And I think that if they can turn things around, get things moving in the right direction again, and accomplish what they set out to, that those people will be won back. Because I do think that they have a product that resonates with people, right? We see the excitement even in this market with a good drop, right? The excitement that can get created. I was on Vault's channel this morning and there were 250 people on the stream for a poster drop, right? Which most people hate posters. It was a Star Wars poster, but most people don't even like posters to begin with. But we had, 250 people there. It ended up selling out. So, my core thesis has changed a little, right? And that's in regards to the team's technical expertise and being able to accomplish all they set out to. But, if they didn't hire Mitch and make some changes, I would feel differently. But the fact that they're trying something new to fix the problem still gives me hope that they can turn things around. I'm also not over leveraged, so it's easy for me not to get overly emotional, right?
Yeah.
Because this is not my purchase, my average price for Omi is under 002. So I'm down, but I'm not like, I didn't buy at all-time highs. Right? I loaded up in this down market and lowered my cost basis. And so, I have my money spread out. I'm not overly emotional about it. And I do think that the setup is still there and that the people will be on board and sentiment can change if they get those catalysts out.
Yeah, I think just a slight contrarian view actually is so long term. So do I think that they can still be successful? Like, yes, but I used to be hardcore bullish, but now I'm like nowhere near that bullish. And the main reason, right, is and I've noticed some people have gone quiet about this, is I would always hear the view that, Omi and Vivi, they're not doing well because it's a bear market. Like, this was when Bitcoin was below 20K. They're like, it's a bear market, it will recover, it will follow the market. Bitcoin's just rallied to over 30K again. Like, it's breaking a key support level, like this yearly pivot. ETH just broke 2K. And since then, the value of the collectibles have just gone down even more. Like, what you can buy Volt for less than 2.5K now. And there's a bunch of them listed for less than 2.5K. So that's one thing you have to point out now is we're having a clear rally in the crypto market. Why is Vivi not rallying? Why is the Omi token a stable coin at this point? Like, where's the movement on that? FTT, a token of a rug pull just did 100% gain. Like, a rug pull token has outperformed Omi, right? In this rally. Even like the most random stable coins that no one even buys anymore, like, that have been around for ages that, don't advertise or anything, like, Neo, like, what was it called? I can't remember now. XLM, like all of these ones, even Dave, like, had like, 20, 30% gains. So you got to ask yourself, right, is there were people talking about the scenario that when the bear market ends or when there's a rally, everything else will just naturally rally. That hasn't happened. So, are you, and this is the thing, right, is if they don't deliver significantly, like across the next 6 months, like significantly, and I'll be honest, they've delivered less than I thought in the past, like since November when we last, first spoke. Like, they delivered less than I thought they would deliver. So if they don't deliver significantly, what we're going to have is a situation where Omi is still flat. The Vivi stuff is still, being diluted. But the rest of the crypto market is just gone off on another bull run. Like, Bitcoin will be sat there at like 100K and your Omi is still at like, 0007. Like, at that point, how upset are you? Well, how upset would people be they bought into Omi expecting it to like moon, and not much has changed. And then the other thing that I think people do need to take into consideration is when Vivi launched was at the peak of an NFT bubble, like market bubble, like anything with NFTs was pumping. So it's not a good comparison to compare all-time highs to now. Like, now it looks more like, the true kind of, value and demand and things like that. Even now, I'm still seeing like, some of the collectibles that people, hyped up, they're still kind of slowly dripping down in price. I don't think they found like a solid floor yet. Walt, I thought the floor was actually 3K, but now it's 2.4K, and Bitcoin's like freaking pumped like hell. So, like, I don't know what the true floor for some of these things are, but, the point being is we need to see some significant delivery, but that has to coincide with having an edge over the rest of the market. Because if you look back at crypto from early on, right, there was like Bitcoin dominance was really, really high, but Bitcoin dominance started to go lower as more altcoins got released, which took away that market share. And the same thing's going to happen with Vivi. Is there going to be competitors coming in with their own platforms? And I don't know why people have this misconception that the licenses are exclusive, because they're not. And I don't know why people think that only Vivi
Marvel is, right? Doesn't Marvel have an exclusive contract?
Marvel said exclusively to Vivi. They're the only ones I've heard that.
They're the only ones.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I'm waiting to see if it's true. Because Disney, so maybe Marvel is that branch of Disney, but Disney I don't believe is exclusive. So like Disney's doing all sorts of stuff with their accelerator programs, and there's a rumor that it's a rumor, so I don't know, but apparently Disney's going to be doing Star Wars stuff with Wax, like the Funkos. That's the rumor going around, so I'm still waiting to see if that it does end up being true. But the point being, like, there are going to be a lot more newer platforms, and right now they're still in early stages, many of them, but they're not hindered by the tech. Like they're doing the tech right, which is why they're taking it slow. And so the feature deliveries are going to be really rapid. If a licensor wants to do something, they'll be able to implement it a lot quicker than I imagine Vivi would be able to do it, because of their technical debt. So all of these things, like, you have to then factor that 6 months in the future or 12 months in the future, like what they need to do 12 months from now needs to be way, way greater than what they're currently doing, in order to just get like that same level of benefit. And so people are going to start to look at opportunity cost here, and they're going to be like, is it really worth me, buying more collectibles, buying more OMI? Or is it better to put my money in something safer and more stable, like, Bitcoin or Ethereum, which I know is going to go at least 2x? Maybe that is better, because at this point, the people saying, because I did see people saying, oh, you should buy the Wolts rather than buying Bitcoin, because the Wolt can very easily go, back to 10K. That's a 4x. Whereas Bitcoin has to go to over 100K to get 4x. But I don't at this point, I don't think Walt is going to go 4x. Like, judging by how
it's a much more speculative play.
Exactly, that's a way more speculative.
Yeah.
So, like, again, it can happen, but they need to do a lot when it comes to the improvement of the platform and the token. And I'm not seeing the thing like with Cardano, where they're doing all the stuff in the background, so you can see the background research, even though it wasn't having a direct result on the product. Like, I'm not seeing as much as I'd like to see on the background research side of things. It's like the stuff they're doing is like not to the level that we should be getting for a company of this caliber. Like, there needs to be a lot more being done, but I'm just not seeing it. So that's why I've scaled my expectations back a lot, which is why I'm a lot less bullish now.
All right, fair enough, man. Listen, I like listening I love having you on because I love your perspective. I love hearing everyone's, a lot of different voices in the community. I take them all in, and at the end of the day, we're all pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, it's definitely good having like contrasting views. I mean, like, my views are just purely like just what I believe. It's not fact or anything. But I think it's good to just try and be realistic, because like, I've got no incentive to say good things, and I've got no incentive to say bad things. I'm just saying, like, what I see objectively as a product that can do well, and the things that they need to do well. That's kind of like what I like putting out there.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I want to thank everyone in the chat for joining us today. Thank Daniel Lee and his daughter who were here with us, and as always, thank you, Kay. It was another great discussion.
Cool. Thanks, Danny.
Catch you guys in the next one.